Hey, Jim Remley here with eRealEstateCoach.com. Just a couple things to think about as you're coming into the week. Do you have a game plan? Great quote from Jack Welch. He said this: no strategy is a strategy. So at The Path, at eRealEstateCoach, we've got something called the Daily Dashboard, which outlines a whole series of things you could be thinking about each week, and it helps you to measure and be accountable to yourself. One of the things that happens to us as realtors is we become independent contractors. For some of you, that means independently poor because you don't have an employer telling you what to do every day. So if you want to change that trajectory, what you need to do is start being accountable to yourself and measuring every single thing you do, because you can't improve what you don't measure. Now, one thing that we should also be thinking about as we're entering the fall market is, how are we having pricing conversations? Are we changing up our dialogue? We know that nationally, there's a real trend right now for price adjustments. In fact, really the whole market is kind of having a price adjustment. And when you drill into your market, you should start to take a look at what's happening. How am I going to coach my sellers? Am I going to be an interpreter of information? And so here's a couple of conversations that might help you. One is called the anchor point conversation. And so this is before you start talking about comps. You're sitting down with the seller, you're starting to have that conversation, and here's what you say. Hey, so before we dive into the specific comps, have you noticed your neighbor's home over on 123 Johnson Street, a couple streets over? Have you seen that sign? And they're going to say, yes, of course. You know, I noticed it as well, and so I pulled up the data on that property. They've been on the market 96 days, or whatever the number is, 24 days, 55 days, whatever it is, and they still aren't pending. So what they really did is they listed the property. This is the key language. They listed the property, but they didn't really want to sell it. You see, they're priced at whatever dollar per square foot, $180 a square foot, $220 a square foot. They're way above the market. So you're setting a high anchor point where they know, I probably shouldn't price my house there because I don't want to be like my neighbor down the road. Then you can flip it around and create another anchor point with people that are actually selling. So you could say, on the other hand, your neighbors over at 154 Johnson Street had a bidding war on their home. They had multiple offers, went pending in 3 days, and they started with a real pricing strategy. They started at $182 a foot or $163 a foot. Now I'm setting a precedent, high anchor, low anchor, and I can start to price somewhere realistically. Now, another part of helping your sellers understand where the market is getting feedback from agents that are showing the property and open house attendees. And I know that's sometimes difficult. To make it easier, start texting the agent, start texting the open house attendees, and you'll get a much better response. You know, 95% of texts are read within 5 minutes and responded to, so it's a great communication tool. Here's an example. You might say, hey, thank you for showing my house today over at whatever the address is. 3 quick questions. What do you think of the price? What do you think of the price? And what's one thing we could do to improve the condition of the house? And the last question, the third question is, this is the most important one, what did your buyers actually end up buying? Then you take that information, you hand it back to the seller and say, they thought you were a little bit above the market, they were a little concerned about the deck condition, and really what they ended up buying was the house over here. And you show them what in their peer group actually sold, you send them a copy of the listing so they know and they get sensitized to what's actually selling in the marketplace. If you do that consistently, they're going to have a realization, an epiphany about what they need to do to get their home sold. Same thing with open house attendees, a little bit different. At the open house, you're going to say, hey, would you mind participating in a 3-question survey about the house? Your information is never shared with the seller, just a way for us to understand what buyers are thinking. They say yes, now you've captured their phone number, and you're going to send them a quick text as well. So you're going to say, hey, thanks for stopping by 123 Johnson Street today. 3 quick questions. What did you think of the price? Same thing. What is one thing we could do to improve the property? And the last question is this: if I have a home that fits your needs, your price criteria, would you be okay with me sending it over to you? I have a couple in mind. So of course the last thing there is to try to capture them as a client. So some things to think about when it comes to feedback. Now, last thing I'm going to cover with you is normalizing price reductions. We've been in this uptrending market for 9-10 years now. It's a whole different season of the market, and we have to condition sellers that it's okay to reduce their price. We don't want them thinking they're the only person in the market reducing their price. How do we do that? We normalize it by showing them that a lot of sellers in the market are reducing their price. Now I'm showing you my market right here. We have had, just in the last 24 hours, new listings, 50 new listings hit the market, but we had 49 price reductions. That's just yesterday. And every day it's about 50 price reductions. So taking that information, I could send it to my sellers in an email, a text, a phone call, whatever, and I could say, hey, there's been a increase in the number of price reductions nationally in the market this summer, and sellers are adjusting to really meet the market. Key language, sellers are adjusting to meet the market. I'm tracking it locally, and we're averaging about 50 price reductions a day in our local market. Now, if you normalize that conversation and then you back it up with a visual like I'm showing you here, it can be very powerful. Instead of just saying it, they see it, and it can really help you to normalize those conversations and help sellers understand the power of reducing their price. If you like this information and you want more like it, visit us over at eRealEstateCoach.com, like us on Facebook, like us on Instagram. Have a great week and good selling.